from Texas. He came from Dallas, from a first-generation Jewish immigrant family from Poland, I think. I believe
can't remember, yeah.
Who had escaped the pogroms and come to America and were very poor. He literally lived on a dirt road in Dallas, if you can imagine that. And grew up loving movies and glamour, and wanted to sort of bring some of that once he started working. He started working in the live theater, and then he became an actor on television, playing bit parts, and then eventually had a chance, met up with a guy named Dick Powell, who had been a movie star and had moved into the realm of television. This was happening a bunch with a lot of television stars. Lucille Ball did it. The other Dick Powell's partners in a thing called Four Star Productions all did it. That was Ida Lupino, David Niven, Charles Boyer, and Dick Powell. These were all movie stars of some note who were carrying their talents to television. And Dick Powell was the one who gave him the show that we're going to watch, because he had been working on Dick Powell's show, Zane Grey Theater, Four Star Playhouse is the anthology show, June Allison's show, Dick Powell's wife's show, June Allison, and a Western called Johnny Ringo.
That's right.
And had a chance to, he had some ideas about an episode that Dick Powell was doing for Four Star Playhouse that kicked off the character of Amos Burke in Burke's Law, and signed on to kind of become a producer of that episode. And then the formula was so good, they spun it off into its own show, Burke's Law.
Yeah, so actually, Aaron Spelling, I went through some newspaper archives just to get a feel for what was going on with Burke's Law at the time it was airing. And so Cecil Smith was a very prominent LA Times TV and film critic, and kind of snarky, but he took a week off and he let Aaron Spelling run his column for a week. And he wrote about Burke's Law and about how he thought TV was getting really drab and too serious, and he really wanted to inject a sense of fun and a sense of glamour back into TV. And he talked a lot about how it was a cross between The Thin Man and Agatha Christie. And also one of the things, and we talked about this prior, he was given a budget of about $125,000, which was extraordinary in the years that he was making it. But he even didn't have enough for the co-stars then. Like he said, I'm going to get the most famous guest stars I can. And so what he did was he would offer really interesting roles to people who would normally not do those kinds of shows. And he was able to like rack up a ridiculous amount of, like, this episode alone has so many famous people, it's not even funny. And he approached people like Salvador Dali. He was very bold. Like I feel like Aaron Spelling, despite the fact that he was really bullied as a kid and actually had a nervous breakdown and was bedridden for like a month, he somehow, as he grew older, grew so much confidence in his writing and he didn't think he was a very good actor, but he met a lot of people along the way. Preston Sturgis, Jack Webb. I think he tested for something with Jack Webb with Charles Bronson. And somewhere along the line, he's like, I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it. And he was able to do with just about everything he ever did. And this is the first time I think he really took hold of, like, this is my vision and this is how we're going to do it, and was completely successful, at least for the first 2 seasons. I don't know about when Burke's Law transformed into Secret Agent Man or whatever.
Yeah, that's a whole crazy thing that happens that we'll talk about in conjunction with the second show we're going to watch tonight, Honey West. But Burke's Law, the formula of Burke's Law is all the suspects are stars. That was the formula that Dick Powell liked and signed Aaron Spelling up for. It was the idea that Aaron Spelling had for that one-off episode. It's like, let's have all the suspects are stars. And then he said, Dick, you know Edgar Bergen. I know Carolyn Jones. He was married to Carolyn Jones. And they all they both sort of teamed up, and they ended up landing Ronald Reagan and all these other sort of stars for that episode. And that became the formula for the show, which is why it was such an expensive show, because each of those stars made $5,000 for a day or two of work. And nowadays, if you to make the analogy, because you'll watch this, and probably unless you're a super fan of television and movies from this era, you won't know who a lot of these people are, like Wally Cox and some of the other stars that are in this. But it was they were like, it would be like now if you had a TV show and you had like Sharon Stone on it or something. It was like not the biggest star in the world, but somebody who everybody knows who she is and is a competent performer. It was like stars of like Janet Blair in this is like, I don't know if she was quite Sharon Stone size, she wasn't, but like somebody who was an actual celebrity and a star. And then every episode of Burke's Law would have 5 of those people, you know.
Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna have 7 to 10 stars in every episode, and like he pulled it off consistently. And he also found a really great lead in Gene Barry.
Yeah.
I can't think of. I'm in love with Gene Barry. I know him mostly from his later work with Aaron Spelling, like on Love Boat and Fantasy Island, and he's so absolutely charming in this. And so is his co-star Gary Conway, who, by the way, just as an aside, did Playgirl in the 70s, and that's where I discovered him, to be honest, because I was doing an article on actors who did Playgirl, TV actors, and I hadn't seen Burke's Law yet, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting and bold. But he's really charming in this too, and very much a newcomer, I think, at this stage. And Aaron Spelling understood chemistry. He just really knew how to put people together in their scenes and make the most of the wacky premises, because he said he wanted every murder to be totally ridiculous. That was a goal, and yet he got everybody to kind of work into this really outrageous idea and make it feel not realistic at all, but feasible for the universe he created.
And just so we're going to show this, we're going to run this in just a minute, just so you're not too confused about what's going on. Yes, Amos Burke is a cop. He's also incredibly wealthy. It's the premise of the show. I don't remember how explained it ever is, but he drives like a he's chauffeured around in a Rolls Royce. He lives in a mansion, and yet he's like a police lieutenant or whatever. It's a weird premise, but just go with it. So Doug, let's go ahead and start Burke's Law, and we'll run the first part of it, and we'll be back in 13 minutes to kind of wrap up what we see.
Eye of newt, toe of frog, blood of a freshly hanged man. Oh, I wish I didn't have to wear this silly thing. A design to summon your satanic majesty. A design to summon the Prince of Evil. For a little ta-ta. Well, now, for the juice. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Da, 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 da. Dun, da, da, da. Da, da, dum. Da, da. Within this design, safe as I can be, la dee da dee 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 dee. You who know all, see all, come to me. Tell me who my enemy may be. You. You're not? Yeah.
Sugar, you are a fine-looking girl, but you sure are a wretched bartender.
I want to be loved for my talent, not my looks.
Why don't you quit while you're winning?
Oh, Amos, you'll love this drink. It's like a grasshopper. Only better. I call it a locust.
It'll probably take me 7 years to recover from it.
Nobody likes a wise guy.
Your concoction's beginning to take on a rather murky look, love.
Oh, Amos, you just have no spirit of wild adventure.
Oh, I don't know. I date you, don't I?
You know, I think a relationship should be based firmly on hate, don't you? That way we have no place to go but up.
One sip of this, I'll probably wind up in orbit. It's open.
This just come for you, boss.
At this hour?
Come by special delivery. Had to sign for it.
From Purity Mather, Beverly Hills return address. You can go back to bed now, Henry. Thanks.
Auditioning one of my rivals?
Sugar, man would be out of his mind to seek elsewhere when you are obviously goddess of the night.
If I thought for 1 minute that you meant that, I'd turn to butter.
Restrain yourself. Butter on the rug brings ants.
Good evening, Captain Burke. My name is Purity Mather. I am a direct lineal descendant of Cotton Mather, and there are some who say I'm a witch. I'm about to be murdered, Captain Burke. Oh, I have a way of knowing these things. Sometimes a seance will reveal it to me, and sometimes my familiar, my crow, Baal shaman, tells me. I'm not sure exactly when, but certainly by the time you receive this record. In the record jacket, you'll find a list of suspects. I've included them so you won't have to waste time on false starts. The question is, who killed me, Captain Burke?
A nut.
No, I don't think so. She sounds much too serious. 10 past midnight. At this hour, I can believe almost anything. Henry, put on your socks, comb your locks, and let's go.
Tarantado nakakainis. Hindi na ako nakatulog. Ano yan? Utos ng utos. Walang tigil.
Forget that Japanese Sandman routine. We've got to hit the road.
It's Burke's Law.
Then it was murder. No question about it. Fire. The witch died by fire.
No, but not this one. Asphyxiation. She was dead before the flames got to her.
And what disfigured her?
Take a look. You can call it fire if you want to stretch a point. Modern fire. Sulfuric acid fire. Right in the face. She had enemies. The flames hadn't quite got to her before the boys got her out.
We made the identification by that tattoo on her shoulder. The traditional witch's hallmark. Neighbor saw her sunbathing and noticed the tattoo. If it hadn't been for that, identification would have been impossible with the flames and the acid.
And I bet there's a run on binoculars in the neighborhood.
All right. What's the punchline?
There's no bathing suit marks. She got the sun in the nude.
Have him remove the body now.
You can guard my cornfield any day.
Must be her Baal shaman she talked about in the record.
Whatever happened to the good old-fashioned witches of Mother's Day? Cats were good enough for them.
She's a nonconformist. Probably rode a vacuum cleaner.
Captain, look at this medallion. It's got the same design as that tattoo, a star and a trident. Hey, what's that?
It says, summon me from fire, the witching hour, full of woe.
We start from 00 nowhere. Any clue we might have found went up in flames with that house.
No. It's a juicier start than usual. Purity Mather reaches up to us from the grave to help us. She sent me a list of suspects.
How many?
5, all winners. Tim,
Make a copy of these 2 notes. We'll split the action, show it around, ask a few irrelevant questions. Look busy. I'll see you at the office.
Captain, what about Boal Shaman?
Well, you can bring him back to headquarters. You're beginning to look like something out of Edgar Allan Poe.
No more.
Contemplating my neighbor.
Police, O'Shea, open up the door.
I'm sleeping. Now you beat it or I'll call down the wrath of the heavens.
You have to the count of 3 to open up. 1.
You're kidding. You've got to be kidding. Tell me you're kidding.
We're kidding. That's a bed of nails.
You're a fake here.
Yes, that's right. How'd you know?
Fake here, George O'Shea, right?
Yes, that's right. Okay. Now, look. How do you know, and who are you, and what are you bugging me for at this time of night?
What's a fake here?
Muslim mystic. A holy man. They're supposed to be able to control their bodies so totally that they can sleep on a bed of nails.
Fakir O'Shea, an Irish Muslim.
I was with the 10th Air Force flying from India over the hump to the Yunnan province. I became an adept there. Say, what the place you guys want?
Say, you have quite a lab here.
Why not? I earn an honest living.
Doing what?
I'm a consulting chemist for several cosmetic firms. Now, what do you want?
Copper vitriol, COSO45H2O, iron vitriol, and zinc vitriol. The 3 crystallized forms of sulfuric acid. Do you have much use for sulfuric acid, Fakir?
I use it for etchings, for dyes, varnishes, calico printing. Say, what is this all about? My patience is wearing thin.
You're supposed to achieve the state of cosmic bliss, Fakir. Why are you so nervous?
Nervous? Me? Your nightmares. You'll go away if I think kind thoughts.
Try thinking kind thoughts about Purity Mather.
Purity Mather? Did that witch send you here?
You don't like Purity Mather?
I've learned to banish hate.
It certainly sounds like it.
O'Shea, wouldn't all of this be carried on in some lab provided by the company you work for?
I'm carrying on some private research.
Such as?
I'd rather not say.
Force yourself. All we have downtown are some uncomfortable mattresses and foam rubber pillows.
All right. I perfected a pill that will enhance the color of women's lips. That way they don't have to apply any lipstick.
Sounds like something out of Jules Verne.
It might sound like that, but I done it. Oh, I admit, it wasn't right at first. I was getting too many blues and greens. It made everyone look like they'd been in the water too long.
A real winner.
But it's perfected now. And that rotten tramp Purity. She stole the formula. She tried to market it herself. But just let her try.
Someone poured sulfuric acid on her around midnight. She's dead.
Care to tell us where you're at 12 o'clock?
Oh, 12 o'clock. Yes, I was at the mosque at Sanders and Stein Streets.
Anyone see you there?
About 50 people, and you can check it. I led the prayer. It was the evening Naga. I was there until about 12:30 p.m.
Tim, show him the note.
Does this mean anything to you?
Summon me from fire, the witching hour, full of woe. The witching hour is midnight. That's all I know about that.
It's not much help.
We'll be in touch, Mr. O'Shea.
Fakir O'Shea!
Have it your way. But don't leave town.
Well, I'm innocent. I had nothing to do with it.
It's all well and good. Just stay put.
I can send my astral body anywhere at will.
And what happens to your earthly shell?
Why, it stays right here.
We'll settle for that.
Not. All right. So, suspect one, Telly Savalas.
Not Vic
is here.
Tayback.
Not Vic Tayback. It's funny. Now I'm always going to confuse Vic Tayback with Telly Savalas. Somebody on Twitch typed in Vic Tayback, which is, yes, you can understand. Those guys must have been up for a lot of the same parts for a long time.
I think I was telling you, I think I remember them being on Alice together. I feel like Vic Tayback, Telly Savalas showed up on an episode of Alice. And,
Yeah.
And he did the Greek dish.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Did you remember that?
I don't remember that, but yeah, he was Greek, and he was very proud of being Greek, and he would do Greek stuff on Kojak sometimes.
That's right.
With his Greek brother. But this episode was we didn't talk about it beforehand. It was written by Harlan Ellison, who was a sci-fi writer who of some repute, of some note. He was also like a terrible TV critic. He was a really harsh. He wrote a TV column in, like, I don't know, Screw magazine or someplace. We magazine, I think he wrote his TV column, and yeah, he was not a very forgiving TV critic. He was a guy that, frankly, even though he was a very well-known sci-fi writer, he wrote that. He wrote the television episode "City on the Edge of Forever" for Star Trek, which is a great TV episode. Let's be honest, and this episode's a lot of fun. But he was not. He was the sci-fi writer who every other sci-fi writer hated. Everybody who ever came in contact, his publishers hated him. This is my impression, that everybody hated him.
No, everybody hated him.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad served in the military with him, and he hated him. And everybody that served with Harlan Ellison hated him. My dad said he was a snitch. He loved to tell on everybody. He was like lower ranking, and I think that's just what he did because of that. And my dad kept our house pretty Harlan Ellison free. So this is one of the only things of his I've ever been exposed to aside from that Star Trek. And I do like this episode quite a bit, but yeah, he has a reputation. Not so much with his fans. I think sometimes he's okay with his fans. I think they expected him to be a little grumpy, and I think they kind of enjoyed it. And I don't want to put down his writing or his legacy, but yeah, not very well liked as a person.
He was kind of a holy beast. A lot of people sort of appreciated that he was irascible in the extreme. One of the first things I ever heard about Harlan Ellison was from an old-time sci-fi guy who said, "Oh yeah, Harlan Ellison, he had no genitals. Everybody knew it." It's just like,
news to me.
Wow, that's okay. I doubt that was true, but it is the sort of thing that you make up about someone that you really, really don't like. But this episode, proceeding in pace, you see really the sort of formula for the show, which is you've got Amos Burke. In every show, he has a lovely young woman she's more into him than he's into her, which is sort of like a thing that happens there at his bar, at his place, and he's kind of sort of playing off her affection, sort of, and at the same time being sort of smooth. And then we get into the murder or whatever. I guess it's always a murder. The investigation, and we meet his partners, played by Gary Conway and Regis Toomey. We meet his chauffeur, played by Leon Lontoc, and they'll be the sort of people who are in every episode. And then what's going to happen is either Amos Burke or Gary Conway and Regis Toomey are going to go around to all the different suspects. The suspects will each be on their own set. It'll be a unique set that they're on, and they'll each be played by a unique performer who's usually in just that one scene, unless he or she happens to be the murderer, in which case there's the wrap-up scene with that person. That's the formula for the show, really.
Yeah, and also he had Burkeisms. So, and I can't think of one off the top of my head now, but I think there's one for sure in this episode. And he'll say something really witty, like, it's like, only ask a question if you already know the answer. Burke's Law.
Yeah.
And so and they actually made a book of his isms, I think when the show was first airing, and Aaron Spelling put a book together and released it. They were very popular.
Yeah, this was a popular show, and yeah, every episode there's a Burke's Law. That's part of the formula too. Is like somebody will say something, he'll have a platitude and say Burke's Law, and so like as if it's like Murphy's Law, but it's actually changes every time. But the show was popular enough that you could actually publish a book of Burkeisms. It lasted 2 full seasons as it was, and then we'll talk about the crazy thing that happened to the show in its 3rd season when they tried to sort of keep it going for 1 season too long. But as it stands right now, I think we'll get back into our next segment of the show, and I think we'll probably meet 2 more suspects at this point. So Doug, we can just go ahead and roll it.
It wasn't a rough climb until the last 10 stories. Key of C sharp. Good evening. Now let's talk about murder.
You didn't actually climb 17 stories to get onto my terrace, did you?
Oh, no. I knocked on the front door, but there was so much noise, I walked around the terrace entrance.
Well, I have been chasing her a little bit. I like that. She likes to make noise. It's one of her more charming habits. See?
Your wife?
My wife? Oh, no. Just pleasant evening's entertainment and diversion.
How do you feel about tossing sulfuric acid as a diversion?
I dislike being rude, but would it upset you terribly if I asked who you are?
Oh, forgive me. I'm Captain Burke of the Homicide Division.
The police?
Unless you know another organization that peddles homicide.
My name is Bug. I.A. Bug?
Yes, I know, Mr. Bug. Would you mind telling her that I'm harmless? It might put some color back in her cheeks.
She's easily frightened. She probably thought you were a ghost.
Would she have any occasion to meet ghosts up here?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, yes. See, I hold seances here from time to time, and one time she was badly frightened by a large glop of ectoplasm.
Did Purity Mather have anything to do with these seances?
Oh, yes. You spoke of murder. Did someone kill Purity?
Yes, around midnight. You're smiling? No tears? No grief?
Oh, I knew it had to happen. Viola is getting even with her. Oh, joy, oh, rapture. Oh, joy, oh, rapture. Oh, joy, oh, rapture.
Mr. Bug, we're not finished talking yet.
No, and I just want to change my clothes. You talk to a girl, talk to nice man. You talk to nice girl. Oh, joy, oh, rapture. Oh, joy, oh, rapture. Oh, rapture. Oh, joy, oh, rapture.
Oh, thank goodness he's gone. I can relax for a minute.
And you can't relax when he's around.
Not at the prices he's paying.
I gather you two have a business relationship?
In a manner of speaking.
Well, as long as you're speaking, would you mind telling me a little bit about your business partner?
Well, he's a millionaire with nothing to do but amuse himself.
What's the connection with Purity Mather?
How should I know? I only come up here 3 nights a week and let him chase me. He never catches me. He doesn't really want to. I do a little screaming and giggling, and he thinks I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Must have something to do with the seances.
Well, could be. He's a seance nut, all right. He keeps trying to call back the ghost of his childhood violin teacher.
His what?
Sure, that's Viola, the one he was giggling about. He told me there was some woman gypping him out of a lot of money, trying to raise this violin teacher, this Viola, but that it was all a fraud, and he planned to get even. And now, as long as we're speaking, why don't you tell me a little bit about you?
He's taking too long. The bug has split.
But how? The only exits are past where we were talking.
Of course. A private elevator. Probably leads directly down to the garage in the basement, non-stop.
Oh, maybe that explains it.
Explains what?
Well, he was with me all evening except for about half an hour around midnight. He said he had a stomach ache. He came in here and locked the door. Hey, wait a minute. What about me? I haven't been paid yet.
When I find him, I'll tell him to mail it to you. What's your name?
Girl.
First or last?
Both. Girl, girl.
Sergeant, put on an APB on a little ball of fuzz named IA Bug. About 5'5", pushing 60 from the other side. Now, you can't miss him. He'll be the only one on the street wearing lederhosen.
I've got some illuminating sidelights on one of your suspects, Count Carlo Sapesti. Want it now? Well, for openers, he claims he's descended from a long line of Transylvanian royalty, some of whom had very long teeth.
Long teeth?
Yes, vampires. Everyone knows it's a gag, but he carries it off smartly.
Your chief, too, is amazingly accurate, Sergeant. Did it happen to tell you where I might find this character?
He operates like a traveling salesman, lives out of his car.
What's so peculiar about that?
Well, Motor Vehicle Bureau tells us the only car registered to him is a glass-sided hearse.
You're kidding.
Oh, you might try the Studio City Theater at Ventura and Laurel Canyon.
The Studio City Theater.
Yes, there's an ad in the entertainment section of the paper that says Count Carlo Sapesti will be making personal appearances at an all-night horror movie at the theater.
Are you Count Sapesti?
No, sir.
Is this the Count's hearse?
No, it's his home.
Well, is he at home?
You might try the front door. It's in back.
Naturally. Carlo Sapesti?
What?
I said, are you Count Carlo Sapesti?
Can't hear you. Well, that was pretty rude. And just when the cat was going to eat the mouse.
I'll get you all the mice you can eat later. Right now, I want to ask you a few questions.
By what right do you ask me questions?
Section 836, Penal Code, State of California.
I think you're a policeman.
I think I want to sit down. Oh. I'm Captain Burke, homicide.
Violence.
Oh, I thought vampires doted on violence. Blood, victims, all that sort of thing.
By the way, do you care for a drink? I'm having a Bloody Mary.
No, thank you.
I hate them too, but they keep up my image.
This is quite an image you have, making personal appearances at horror movies.
It's better than collecting unemployment.
Yes, I imagine it must be quite embarrassing to fill out those forms.
You said you had some questions. About what?
Oh, like, where were you at midnight tonight?
I was at a banquet with friends.
Oh, you have friends?
Of course I have friends. Don't be a boor. Why shouldn't I have friends?
Oh, I don't know. It just seems to me that a man who can change into a bat at the drop of a corpuscle might very well...
All right, let's leave my personal habits out of this. So I'm a vampire. Nobody's perfect.
A minor character flaw.
So I was with friends. Now, do you mind telling me why you ask?
Do you know Purity Mather?
That trollop, that strumpet, she called me a fraud. A fraud, can you imagine? And right in front of some of the wealthiest society people in town. I could have killed her.
That's my next question.
I beg your pardon?
Did you kill her?
That's ridiculous.
Well, she's been murdered, and it seems you have a motive.
How did she die?
Sulfuric acid and fire.
Not my style. Too messy. All my best work is done with just 2 little holes in the neck.
Sepesti, I think she was right. You are a fraud. You're certainly not a vampire. I'm not sure yet whether you're a murderer or not.
Just because my teeth aren't sharp. There's no need to make fun of me. It's not my fault I have dental troubles. Dawn. Dawn is coming. My show is over. I must go home.
Look, there's just one more thing. Does this mean anything to you?
Summon me from fire. Not a thing except that it's in Purity's handwriting.
I gather you knew her quite well.
She was a strange girl. She swore she was a witch, but nobody believed her.
The way they believe you're a vampire.
There's no comparison. I'm authentic.
Is there anything you could tell me about Purity's friends?
Which ones?
Oh, let's say, Rena Jacobs, for one.
Oh, Rena, she's a doll.
Oh, yeah?
She runs the Health Glow nudist colony.
Tell me, what was her connection with Purity?
Well, they used to be very close friends, but then Purity stole Rena's fiancé. Poor chap, he died a while back in Europe in a plane crash. And Rena never forgave her.
Do you know Venus Hecate Walsh?
No. Yes. Yes, I do. I met her at one of Purity's seances. She thinks she's the reincarnation of the goddess Venus. She's quite mad, I'm afraid. I really must leave.
Yes, but don't turn into a badamoose or an oddbot. I'll leave town. I'm going to want to see you again.
I am tied to this town by my native soil, Captain. We vampires lead a rather restricting life.
Well, I'm going to have to check into your alibi and see that you really were at that banquet with your friends at midnight. And if you aren't, I can tell you, you're going to live a much more restrictive life.
Hurry, Gorgo. Beat the sun.
All right. So we've seen our next couple of suspects. We've seen Charlie Ruggles with the bizarre character Girl, played by Nancy Kovac. Such cheekbones on that Nancy.
Oh, she's
Kovac.
so stunning.
What a weird character. And then our next suspect is Wally Cox as the television vampire host guy, whatever he is. And Wally Cox was a famous figure from early television in a show on the DuPont network called Mr. Peepers, and he was very funny, a very funny line delivery, and he was supposedly Marlon Brando's secret boyfriend.
That's news to me.
Yes. He's not what you would picture as Marlon Brando's type, but who knows?
Yeah, I didn't know he had a type at all, so I can buy it.
So we're continuing to sort of run through this episode. Aaron Spelling loved guest stars. So we talk about how at this point, he set up this series so it would be all guest stars. He ends up setting up a number of his later successful series. I mean, all shows have guest stars. It's the nature of television shows. But he had these television shows that were really built to be rallies for different stars and give different stars great parts, like Fantasy Island and Love Boat and Hotel. We were just talking about it was having a bunch of guest stars was very important for Aaron Spelling's properties.
It probably came from the fact too that he loved anthologies, and although Burke's Law, I wouldn't call it an anthology. Certainly, Love Boat was. They were sort of the narrator. They helped propel other stories, the crew of the ship. But I think having the different guest stars gives it kind of like this, like separate slice of life kind of things happening throughout. And he just loved classic actors, particularly actresses. He loved, like, and a matter of fact, in his book, which you have right here, which Primetime Life, which is excellent, his autobiography, he talks about meeting Barbara Stanwyck, I think on Zane Grey Theater, and he brought her to the TV movie. And he loved giving her work. I think she ends up in an episode of Charlie's Angels where she's like the female Charlie. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he was really good with them. I think he treated people really well, because you'll notice you can use Gene Barry as an example. He showed up over and over again in all of his productions. Yeah, he really loved and appreciated the actors, and maybe that's partially because he was an actor himself who really kind of was frustrated. He had a hard time kind of falling into it in the way he wanted, and so I think he appreciated the art of it, and I think he appreciated what us seeing that familiar face did for us too. Like maybe he's the creator of Cozy Mysteries. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, it's really a trademark of Aaron Spelling shows, is having all those wonderful people, those wonderful faces that you didn't get a chance to. Even in Hotel, much later from the mid '80s, he got like Elizabeth Taylor to be in that show. So that was a really that was the last really of a sort of star-studded, primarily guest star styled and there has to be a new word. It's like an anthology, and yet it's sort of all set in one place. They're not exactly anthology shows because you have a home base, but they are bringing in sort of different people's problems on that show particularly.
And on Love Boat and Fantasy Island, they were all just known for, I mean, I call them anthologies. That's kind of how I see them, but it's like 3 different stories being told, and then the people who star in the show are just helping the story kind of go forward. And sometimes they get their own story. You know, like Julie on Love Boat lost every man she ever fell in love with. That's a thing. But like, but in general, it was the guest stars that carried it, and he was able to approach a number of different topics that way. Here, he's just working on, I think, the glamour aspect. I think the deep diving that he does, that we'll talk about later as this program goes on, isn't as apparent here. Here, it's just pure, let's have a lot of fun. You know.
And next month we're going to do a Barbara Stanwyck TV movie produced by Aaron Spelling, and that's a great example of, I mean, Barbara Stanwyck's one of the greatest screen actors ever, truly, and Aaron Spelling certainly felt that way, and he was giving her a part when she was, you know, a woman in her 60s and was not getting a lot of parts, and that he gives her a great part in that TV movie.
We'll talk about more about that then, but I have so much to say about, he gives her a love interest. I mean, he treats women of all ages as if they can do anything that a woman of a different age can do. You know what I mean? Like the generational divides don't exist, and he was so good at giving female actresses that were older these really meaty parts, and romance was never off the table. Being a hero was never off the table. He was really good about that kind of stuff.
We're going to see a great star of earlier times in the next part of this episode, but she's giving kind of a wackadoo sort of like crazy.
Well, she was
sort of
wackadoo,
part.
I think, because she did Savage Bees too, like I guess a decade later. And one of the things I remember about that is that she was really open to actually having them put dozens of bees all over her. She was game for anything, and I think she really dove into this part here that's so entertaining.
And so that really is the great Gloria Swanson that you're going to see, and the fright wig coming up in this episode. So Doug, we can resume, please.
Well, the sign's very explicit, Captain. What should we do?
Well, we could start by walking in.
Naughty, naughty. Over here. Peekaboo-boo.
Good morning. May we come in?
Who are you, anyway?
I'm Captain Burke of the Homicide Division. This is Detective Tilson.
Our license is in order.
Well, I must say I'm not here because of licenses.
Oh? What are you here about?
Are you shocked, easily?
Captain, when you've seen everyone with their clothes off, there's very little left to be shocked about.
I'd say that's good thinking.
We're looking for Rena Jacobs. She around?
Round in some places, flat in others. I'm Rena Jacobs.
How are you at puzzles and riddles, Miss Jacobs?
So riddle me a riddle.
Here's a little riddle.
Summon me from the fire, the witching hour, full of woe. Is it an elephant joke?
It's a people joke. The tagline has to do with a murder.
Anyone I know?
Purity Mather. Did you kill her?
I don't want to talk about her. I'm going.
Would you rather go to the station, talk with your clothes on?
What is it you want to know?
Well, let's start with where were you last night around midnight?
I never leave the colony except for special reasons.
Would killing Purity Mather be a special reason?
I didn't kill her.
You say that with regret.
Would you like to know what I think about when I think of Purity Mather?
Tell me.
I think about a very good-looking, gentle man who couldn't handle love, who turned away from it to accept something that seemed like love, but was really hate and destruction. And I think about an airplane crashing in the Swiss Alps. And that good, gentle man, never knowing.
Are you referring to your ex-fiancée, Miss Jacobs?
Yes, that's who I'm referring to. And that's what Purity Mather meant to me.
That would be a very strong motive for murder.
There were others who had better.
Such as?
Such as a man named O'Shea, a chemist. She stole something from him, something very valuable. I don't quite know what it was, but I think it was a formula for some new invention.
Do you know anything else that might help us?
That's about it. Except whoever did it has my deepest gratitude.
Thank you, Miss Jacobs. I appreciate your help.
It wasn't easy. But you're welcome.
Captain Burke speaking. Good morning, Les.
Supplementary coroner's report, Amos. Something interesting. Seems that tattoo mark on Purity Mather's shoulder was a phony. Came off under special solution.
Might have been part of the act to make her seances more convincing.
Maybe.
Anything on IA Bug yet?
Nothing yet, but it ought to be soon. Where are you heading?
To see Venus Walsh out at the Silver Lake District.
You'll drive carefully on the freeway.
Thank you, Mother.
Welcome to the abode of true love.
Venus Hecate Walsh.
Oh, my, you're awfully well dressed.
Thank you.
I think you're too well dressed, at least for what I had in mind.
Well, just what did you have in mind?
Why, to distribute my handbills on the street. Are you sure Mr. Fowler of the news agency told you what this job is?
I think you've confused me with someone else.
Of course. The other delivery boys were about 12 years old, but they weren't half as well dressed as you.
Miss Walsh, I'm Captain Burke of Homicide Division. This is Detective Tilson. We're here to ask you some questions about Purity Mather.
Purity. Oh, a sweet girl, but quite naughty, quite naughty. Oh, yes. You know, when I resume my godhood, I'm going to have to decide whether to punish her severely or not.
Godhood?
Why, yes, of course, Mr. Tillman.
Tilson.
No, yes, be sure. Now, that's why I must have these distributed, these bills, as soon as possible. Otherwise, how are my disciples to know that I'm back?
Back? From where?
Well, of course, you must know that I am the reincarnation of the goddess Venus.
The touch of the Egyptian deity Hecate thrown in?
Now, how clever of you to know that, Mr. Wilson.
Tilson.
He's a clever young man, Captain. Extremely well informed.
Yes, I found that out.
Oh, the goddess business used to be much better than it is now. Over the past few centuries, I've lost most of my believers. Oh, if it weren't for our lovely little animal friends, I think it would be the end of me. I do so love our gentle companions of nature, don't you?
Oh, yes, I'm very fond of them. I noticed that in your menagerie you have two of every kind. You have 2 canaries, 2 parakeets, 2 finch, 2 lamp. There's 2 little piggies here, 2 hamsters, 2 rabbits, and 2 lovebirds.
Oh, you have to have 2. That's the way it all began. Of course, a handsome fellow like you should know that. Well, as a goddess... Oh, now, Thor, stop that. He's such a glutton, that rabbit for carrots. Oh, now, where was I? Oh, yes. I have to get back some of my disciples now.
By distributing handbills?
Yes, free love handbills.
What?
That's just one of the many benefits of worshiping Venus. Free love. You seem to be a lovely prospect, Mr. Hillman.
No. Listen, Mr. Hillman.
Doesn't the idea appeal to you? Oh, I know what it is. You don't find me appealing. Well, I'll just have to punish Purity. If I weren't a goddess, I'd be forced to despise her.
I don't understand.
Well, Purity is like a big magnet, a big personal magnet. She just pulled all the loveliness out of me like a vacuum cleaner. I became almost plain, ordinary. It's no wonder nobody believes in me anymore as a goddess of love.
Tell me, would this note mean anything to you?
Summon me from fire, the witching hour, full of woe. No. Oh, but it's lovely handwriting.
Thank you very much, Miss Walsh. I think it's best.
You can call me your celestial godliness.
Of course, your celestial godliness.
Please don't forget. Would you please pass these out wherever you go? It's very important to me. Particularly you, Mr. Goldman.
Tillman.
You can come back anytime you like, Mr. Tilson.
Well, Captain, that's one suspect we can write off.
What do you mean?
Well, she's a kook. Complete kook.
Maybe she just wanted us to think so. Oh, that phony wig, all that free love jazz. It's a little hard to believe.
Think she could be it?
It's a little early to play tag. One thing for sure, though. She hated Purity Mather. Burke speaking.
How near Woodcut and Foley Avenue are you?
Oh, I'd say about 8 minutes off the freeway. What address?
Holy Cemetery, 9th Crypt, Serenity Row. The caretaker called the beat cop called me, and I'm calling you. They found I.A. Bug.
Would either of you gentlemen care for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
We have a conversation to finish, Mr. Bug.
Isn't this just beautiful? Viola, you know, loves it out here. She was laid to rest in Kankakee, Illinois. But I knew that she'd love it here, so I had her flown out in 1937.
Why did you run away last night?
Well, you know.
No, I don't, Mr. Bug.
Oh, you don't? Well, sit down, Captain. No, sit down. Viola doesn't mind. You see, Captain, I have been in love with Viola for over 40 years. She was a beautiful young thing when she was cut down in her prime. And I have been trying ever since to let her know that one of her students still loves her. Purity Mather preyed on my desires, and she milked me for a pretty penny with her phony seances. And I just had to let Viola know that someone had finally gotten even with Purity.
Well, there's a small but intense group who feel you did the getting even, Mr. Bug.
Oh, no, they're all wrong. Oh, I didn't kill her. What is... Summon me from fire. Now, what does that mean?
Not a thing, Mr. Bug. Not a thing. Let's go, Tim.
We're not, Captain.
I'm going home.
It wasn't right for Purity to cheat me that way, was it?
Don't ask me. Ask Viola.
It wasn't right for Purity to cheat me that way, was it, Viola? No.
Captain, look. Now let him go. We better check the house.
Wait. You must have dropped it when you ran.
It's empty. There was something in it, but there's no odor to it. You better get back to headquarters, have the lab boys check it.
So looking at the structure of the episode, this is obviously we've set up the formula, but hour-long episodes generally have 4 acts in them. They sort of build to the premise and then wipe everything clean in the final act, where you sort of figure out the murder's figured out and everything comes back to normal again.
Yeah, this is an interesting episode because when they get to, and I won't spoil it, but when they get to the reveal of the killer, they explain how they figured it out. And I was like, whoa, that actually was clues that they dropped at the beginning. Because sometimes I watch these and I'm like, how am I supposed to ever figure out who the killer is? But they actually do a pretty good job of like Easter egging the clues in this particular episode.
Yeah, in the world of mysteries, those are called fair play mysteries, because you could figure out who does it. I watch mystery shows. I don't care. I don't care who did it. Am I the only one who does that? I really don't try to figure out who did it. I'll sometimes sort of dope it out. It's like, well, they wouldn't have a star that big unless the star came back for a second appearance. That's my detective work that I'll do on a show sometimes.
Yeah, I felt, well, it's like that whole thing about cozy mysteries, and Burke's Law isn't like a murder she wrote, but it is, I think, where you let the actors do the driving, and who it turns out to be isn't as important as getting to the point where you find it out. But in this particular one, I was really I really admired some of the clues, because when they explained it, I was like, oh wait, that was all right there. And for us, if we wanted to follow along with the mystery, we probably could figure it out with them.
I think that there's we see a lot of sort of the way Aaron Spelling would do some of his future shows. We talked about with some guest stars, but the show actually that feels to me the most like a kind of a remake of this is the Ellery Queen mysteries, because in that show it really is very much the same way. And I guess Murder, She Wrote actually is along those lines too, as you've got guest suspects, and the guess that's sort of the way that the show sort of operates.
And one thing we haven't talked about was the new Burke's Law. So this show, Aaron Spelling, in the 90s was like, well, they were doing, and I can't remember, I think they were on ABC, and I feel like it was part of, so NBC had a mystery wheel, which had Columbo and Banachek and McLeod and some other shows. Quincy started on there. And ABC kind of reduplicated it, and I think they brought Columbo back, and I feel like Burke's Law might have been part of it. I can't remember, so don't quote me on that. But in the 90s, and I guess Gene Barry would have been in his 70s at this point, looking fantastic. He comes back, and he's still working for the police force, but he's got his son as his partner, and it's Peter Barton from Friday the 13th Part 4, and a bunch of other stuff, Powers of Matthew Starr, but Friday the 13th Part 4 is the most important one. And they kind of had, it was weird. It was great. It had a lot of energy, but the one that I watched while we were prepping for this had Bret Michaels from Poison as one of the guest stars. And then it had Gene Barry accidentally end up in the music video that they were shooting, instead of saying cut. And he's like, and he's doing, because he was a dancer, I guess, and it's great, and it's so much fun. And it had a lot of the same flavor, but Aaron Spelling actually says in his book, it was one of the great disappointments of his life, because they kept switching it around on its time slots, much like Crazy Like a Fox. I think of that same era of like they weren't sure what to do with it, and so it couldn't keep the viewers that it was collecting, because it would be on Friday night and then Sunday night and then Wednesday, and so I don't know if it even ran a full season, but he said it was one of the major disappointments because he loved so much redoing this show.
Yeah, it ended up, I think he said that they moved it like 4 times in 2 months or something. Yeah, really impossible for a show to pick it up. They were basically sabotaging the show, which is too bad.
It's because a new president came in. Like I think the person who greenlit it was a different person, and then somebody else came in and they wanted to put their mark on the network.
It's in their vested interest for the other guys' projects to fail. Yeah, that happens a lot with movie studios too. But and that was right before kind of a real sort of that was in sort of a down period because that was after Dynasty and the Colbys and all of that, but it was before Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place.
Yeah, that was a really interesting portion of his career, and he was still, because ABC was called the Aaron Broadcasting Channel after a while because he had done so many hit shows for them, and he did Nightingales, I think, before he did Burke's Law, which was another short-lived series with Suzanne Plachette, and I believe that when they brought him in to entice him to produce a new show for them, because I think they were fledgling at that time, they actually legitimately put out a red carpet for him when he came in to meet with the bosses at the studio. He was, even when he was like sort of struggling in the sort of gap, he was still kind of the king of television, which I love.
Yeah, he was able to get stuff greenlit, like in, and we'll talk more about this because we got a number of these to do. But I know that like Heart to Heart was kind of a thing that he got greenlit basically just on his reputation. You know, and he got he got 1 star. I don't think they had Stephanie Powers yet, but he was able to get it greenlit at that point. So yeah. I think they wanted Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood in that show at first, but that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, they might have. That was really interesting. Yeah, that's a great show. One of my favorites.
Mine too. We'll get to that in the run of our miniseries. But for now, let's watch the grand finale of this Burke's Law episode, and then we'll set up the second show that we're going to do, which is a spinoff of Burke's Law called Honey West. But let's wrap this episode up. Find out who did all the murdering.
Anything with the bottle?
Nothing. The lab's still checking.
Shut up. Amos, when are you going to get this monster off my back?
Didn't I see you in a Hitchcock movie?
Oh, very funny.
What now?
Sergeant, your old captain's about to desert the sinking ship for a while. I'm going home to change. I'll talk to you then.
Well, what about this feathered 8-ball?
I'll be kind to her. It's probably her first romance.
None of the motives are rational. They could conceivably be motives in a wild sort of way, but I have so many. It's like we're dealing with the inmates of a lunatic asylum.
Or as though they were thrown in to confuse us.
2 calls, boss. Mr. Hart on one, Miss Marlene on the other.
I'll get less downstairs.
That's thinking. Hello, Marlene?
Alice.
That bottle, the light.
What the devil did you do?
That bottle contained curare.
All right, so it contained curare.
It's a rare South American poison. The Indians use it on the spears and arrows. It can kill a 900-pound ox in 45 minutes, and it's always fatal.
So?
It acts on the muscles. The victim dies of asphyxiation when it hits the lungs.
Look, I don't care how smart you are. Why the muscle?
I think that second story man put it on your hairbrushes. The scalp is very porous. This would act almost immediately. It's the only logical reason why he'd have been up here in this bedroom.
Well, just in case your theory's right, thanks. But if you're wrong, I want to see you at the gym later.
You must be kidding. Curare. Why curare?
I know it sounds fantastic, but the bristles of the brushes were soaked in it. You know, this is adding up to O'Shea. He's the only one that has the means to come up with curare and sulfuric acid. It's got to be O'Shea.
No. I must be onto something. But what?
Why does this have to be connected with the Mather case? You know, Amos, in certain unsavory circles, you're slightly less than popular.
No less, it has to be. Whoever sent me that curare was either Purity Mather's killer or someone sent by the killer to get me out of the game.
O'Shea's the only possible one.
When the possible solution is no longer possible, accept the impossible.
Burke's Law.
Sherlock Holmes.
Captain, why don't you want to put the clamps on O'Shea? It's also pat.
Well, that's what bothers me. It's all too pat. Everything starting with Purity Mather's list leads right to him. I do not like killers delivered to me in an envelope.
I know what you mean. Looks like Purity's list is hanging us up more than helping us.
Then why should anybody in this case try to kill you?
Logically, it has to be that you're getting close to something you shouldn't know,
or something I already have in my possession, but I'm not aware of.
So what new element has entered into your life, Amos?
That's it, the bird.
You know, the Borgias conceived a special ring to hold poison. And then to be on the safe side, they had a secret compartment behind the secret compartment. I hope we're lucky.
Captain, you've come up a winner.
It looks like a chemical formula to me. Make any sense to you?
Could be a string of cross-connected molecular series for cool resin-based unguents.
You don't say.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
You know, it's the sort of thing you'd need to create a lipstick pill.
O'Shea's invention.
All right. So we found the secret formula. But we still have that weird note. We still don't know what it means. And we have no idea how far we're going to have to go to find the killer.
Captain, what did you just say? Repeat what you just said.
Well, I just said that we found the note. We still don't have the killer.
No, that's not what you said. No.
That's it. I got it.
You got what?
Let me reconstruct what you just said. You said, we have far to go. Words to that effect. And then I remembered what it was about the phrasing in this note that was so familiar. Summon me from fire, the witching hour full of woe. And that reminds me, there's an English nursery rhyme which begins, Monday's child is fair of face. Remember, Tuesday's child is full of grace.
Wednesday's child is full of woe. And Thursday's child is far to go. Well, of course. Full of woe, that's Wednesday. Summon me from fire on Wednesday. The witching hour, midnight. Wednesday, midnight.
Well, today's Wednesday, but what does summon me from the fire mean?
I think I know who killed Purity Mather. Tim, you and I have an appointment tonight at the witching hour.
We'll be at Purity Mather's house.
Summon me from fire. Last place anyone would think to look.
Except the one person who knew what the note meant, but pretended it meant nothing.
So the right day, the right hour, right place.
Hold it. How are things around the campus, Count?
I didn't kill Purity. I swear it.
You just happened to be flying past, so you thought you'd flap in for the sake of old lang syne.
She and I were partners in merchandising O'Shea's lipstick pill. She said there'd only be 2 partners. She'd get rid of O'Shea.
How?
I didn't know what her plans were. She said she would be away for a while, and I should ignore what the newspaper said, and she'd leave a message for me with the crow, where to meet her when I had these papers drawn up. So she had to sign them.
But we had the crow.
After I learned she'd been killed, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the formula for the lipstick, but I had these papers ready. And when you showed me that note, I knew it was from Purity, so I came here tonight just in case.
Captain, does this mean Purity
isn't dead?
Then who's on that slab at the morgue?
Quiet.
Okay, Miss Mather. Alley, all's in free.
Rena Jacobs.
No, that isn't Rena Jacobs. She's on the morgue slab. This is Purity Mather.
The Captain,
You were the one who pointed out that the corpse was suntanned all over, the way a nudist would be. And then the phony tattoo came off at the lab.
When we saw Purity at the nudist camp, she was pale.
The photographer's body makeup hid the tattoo. Tell me something. How did you entice Rena Jacobs to come up here so that you could kill her?
Well, I told her that I was terribly sorry that I'd broken up a little love affair, and that if she would come to my house, I would show her how to relieve herself of the curse by magic.
And thinking that it was part of the ritual, she allowed you to tattoo the trident and star on her shoulder, and then you dressed her in your gown.
On her, it looked lousy.
Poor Rena. She was terribly uncomfortable. In clothes.
While she was busy with the ritual, you threw sulfuric acid in her face. The face destroyed, you figured that the tattoo would lead us to identify her body as yours.
Oh, yes, it was going marvelously, Captain. I even posted myself at the nudist camp to divert you when you came to talk to Rena.
Yes, and then you got worried that I knew too much.
Mm-hmm.
Then you came to my home with the curare to kill me. You thought O'Shea would be blamed.
Curare, sulfuric acid. The hookup was inevitable.
And when you came here tonight, you were hoping that I hadn't yet worked out the message.
That, and to kill Sepesti.
To kill me? You came here to kill me? You're not a nice person, Purity.
Tinker if not with a descendant of Cotton Mather!
Keep that up and you're liable to win an insanity plea.
Oh, stupid spell. I knew I put too much unicorn horn in that solution.
Well, it's a nasty break, kid. You win some, and you lose some.
Amos,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to break it to you.
Break what?
The news.
Oh, why don't you do it the hard way? Start from the front and work back.
Well, how long would you say we've been seeing each other?
Oh, I'd say we have a nodding acquaintance.
Mm-hmm. A nodding acquaintance.
You say nothing about marriage, and that's the way I like it.
Well, I've got a hot flash for you.
I have a feeling you're trying to tell me something.
Mm-hmm. I can't keep our date Thursday.
Why not?
I'm marrying my friend Herschel, the orthodontist, on Wednesday.
That's nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How about Saturday?
Okay.
That's nice.
All right, so that was Burke's Law, directed by Walter Grauman, who also directed the episode that we're going to see of Honey West. He did a lot of TV stuff.
He did a lot of stuff. I know him mostly for his TV movies, and I hate that the only TV movie I can think of off the top of my head right now is Are You in the House Alone, which came out in 1978. But pretty groundbreaking TV movie.
He did those two Louis Jourdan movies where he's like the psychic investigator.
Oh, Fear No Evil and Ritual of Evil?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a really good filmmaker. Fear No Evil is really evocative. Yeah. And he was a journeyman. So he did a lot of different kinds of stuff, but he only ever directed one episode of Burke's Law and one episode of Honey West. And somehow you managed to pick the episodes that he directed.
Don't know how I did that.
Yeah, it was just you like his style or something. But yeah, he was a really interesting filmmaker, and I love him. Whenever I see his name, I used to work for the Directors Guild, and he called one day, and I didn't, you're not really when you're working, you can't be like, oh my God, you're like the coolest guy. But I got to talk to him once on the phone, and that was really exciting for me.
Yeah, that's super cool. He would have been thrilled to know that you loved his work. Come
I
on.
know. I don't want to do that when I'm working
Yeah, yeah.
because I'm wondering if they're going to get uncomfortable or
Yeah.
if I'm going to say something that's not right, or you know what I mean? So it's just easier to kind of take there. But I did talk to a lot of really interesting people. I spoke to Val Guest once.
Yeah,
It was really amazing.
Director of the Quatermass
Yeah.
experiment. Yeah.
He was really nice. But yeah, so I did speak to Walter Grauman, but yeah, he did a ton. He did a lot of murder she wrote, speaking of cozy mysteries. And he was just really good at what he did. You could just drop him into any film set and he could just make it go, which we're going to see in the next one too, actually.
Yeah, there's actually some just other sort of unusual connections with Honey West. So a big thing that happened in television while Burke's Law was on was the Avengers British TV show came over here, and it became a kind of a success. The first episodes of the Avengers, which had Honor Blackman was actually the I don't remember what the character she played on the Avengers at that point, but she was sort of the main star of that. And also James Bond, the Dr. No had come out at that point, and everybody had gone James Bond crazy. So people were crazy about secret agents. They're crazy about like awesome female secret agents wearing tight, cool, glamorous outfits with some touch of the bizarre. And so that's how this show kind of happened. There was actually a backdoor pilot of this show, and a backdoor pilot is when a spinoff is sort of tested within the confines of an existing show. But there was a backdoor pilot of this that was a Burke's Law episode starring Marianne Mobley, who we just saw as the love interest of Amos Burke in this episode, former Miss America, who was also Aaron Spelling's girlfriend at the time, supposedly, according to his book. That's what he says. So they did that spinoff with her, but they wanted, I'm told by you, they wanted Honor Blackman actually to play the role of Honey West.
Yeah, and she turned it down, and eventually they ended up with Anne Francis. And Anne Francis said in newspaper interviews when they first went into production that she actually had not been looking for a TV series, but she liked the character so much. And she'd also been working pretty heavily, and she thought, well, I don't really have anything to lose to star in a show. If it doesn't do well, I can still go back to what I was doing. If it takes off, then I'm on a TV series. So, but she just said she just was so enamored with Honey West.
And it's a 30-minute show, so it's unlike Burke's Law. It has a different sort of act structure. Really, these 30-minute shows only had 2 acts. And so they kind of get into the situation and out of the situation very quickly. Sometimes a little too quickly for me, but this is a good 30-minute show. Anne Francis, who plays Honey West, the first thing I know that she ever did that I'm aware of is Forbidden Planet. She plays the Walter Pidgeon's daughter in that. But she went on to do a lot of television. She's really good. She did a lot of Aaron Spelling television on through the 70s and into the 80s even, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I guess I know her mostly. I think I really discovered her as a teenager. She was, I want to say, sort of a undercover lesbian in a TV show called Riptide that only lasted 3 seasons.
Right.
But she ran this boat that only had all-girl crew.
Right.
And she was like this tough kind of. It was interesting because I think she in a way she was like Shelley Winters in that she was this really beautiful bombshelly type, and then she kind of rejected it, and then started taking on a variety of different types of roles at some point in her career. Kind of like, I'm not always going to be this, and so she would show up on stuff like The Golden Girls and like all kinds of stuff. But I always just thought she was so incredibly beautiful, and she did a TV movie called Haunts of the Very Rich.
Oh yeah.
Where she plays
weird TV
great TV movie, and she plays a really troubled housewife in that. And that was one of the other things I remember kind of discovering her in. She's amazing. She's so good in this. She just she's like Walter Grauman. You just drop her into something and she can just take over. You know what I mean?
This is sort of a tongue-in-cheek show. Well, so is Burke's Law. She really she has a real presence. She has a great voice. That's kind of an underrated aspect, I think, of what Anne Francis really brings, is bring this sort of purring, wonderful voice that she has. And then the show, you'll see what the show is. It only lasted 1 year. It was kind of a a trinket. I think audiences sort of like the idea, but they didn't really stick with the show, it seems.
We should mention it was groundbreaking, though, for a couple of different reasons. But I guess the main reason would be that she was the first woman to lead a series in primetime ever. I say ever, maybe I mean drama or action.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, because there were other, like Donna
Yeah,
Reed and stuff.
sure.
And it was considered really groundbreaking. Also, she was a female detective. And of course, he would refine that and he would bring us Charlie's Angels, but she was really independent
Mhm.
and strong. She took Anne Francis took judo lessons. So when you're watching it, there's a really great fight scene in this particular episode, and she does this thing with her hands. But she actually studied really hard. She wanted to have the moves down, when she actually did the show, and she really threw herself into the part. But it was at the time giving the reins over for a very male-centric kind of genre to a woman. And it's unfortunate that it didn't last more than 30 episodes, but 30 episodes is pretty freaking good.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
pretty good. Yeah, and so we should wrap up before we go into play Honey West. We should wrap up what happened with Burke's Law, which is, again, we talked about James Bond happening, and everybody went the secret agent crazy. Burke's Law season 3 comes out of the gate, and it's Amos Burke, secret agent, or something like that.
That's such not a very secret agent-y name to me.
And it's not on DVD. The first 2 seasons of Burke's Law are on DVD, but that third one is not. So I've never seen any of those episodes. I don't know how it goes, but it doesn't sound like it didn't work. Audiences didn't buy it. It doesn't sound like it really worked.
It's got Gene Barry though, so I would like to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it too, just to see the bizarro premise of it, but it didn't work. But this is the sort of, it's not secret agent exactly. She's a detective, but there's kind of a secret agent sophistication.
She's got some crazy. I think there's a point we're going to see her talking into her lipstick or something at some point. Yeah. She's got all the devices and
it's
everything.
Gadgety. Yeah. It's very cartoonish. But let's roll our episode of Honey West, and then we'll be back in 12 minutes to talk about it.
Wall-to-wall celebrities. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Burke Parks, and Hollywood hasn't seen a premiere like this since the good old days. We just talked to the director of the film. And now here comes one of the stars, Miss Nicole Bridew.
Such a pleasure to be here.
Are you thrilled, Nicole?
Kingly.
Yes. How do you like America?
America. Oh, America is
Beautiful.
I am most grateful for the opportunity. I shall stay in Hollywood forever and make wonderful movies.
And buy wonderful diamond bracelets.
Are you going to settle here?
We already. I have a little chateau in the hills, but now I must stay unforgettably in a stuffy hotel room.
Any room with you in it could never be stuffy. I'll give you
Oh,
that.
darling, thank you, and thank you, my darlings.
Thank you, my darling.
Where are you going, lover?
Are you a cop or a competitor?
Neither.
Funny, I don't remember ringing for room service.
Compliments of the hotel.
Who are you, by the way? I hate being arrested by strangers.
Honey West.
Honey West. Well, well, well. The girl, private eye. Don't you know a woman's place is in the home?
This is no time for a proposal. Just hand over the loot.
Guess you can't win them all. Might as well kiss the lady goodbye.
What lady?
Just an elegant friend I had a kind of date with. Mind if the condemned man has a last cigarette?
Go ahead, but no quick moves.
Bet you say that to all the boys.
Only you, lover.
Keep talking. I'm beginning to get your message. Never tried to kiss a black belt before.
It's always the first time.
How about a rematch? 2 hours and 3 falls?
I'll take a rain check. Let's go. What are you looking for?
My contact lens. Must have dropped out while I was airborne.
Contact lens.
So I'm vain. Turn on that light, will you please?
Goodbye, honey.
Sam. Sam, listen carefully. There's a man leaving the hotel. I want you to stop him. He's tall, he's good looking. He's wearing a tuxedo. He has a little mustache. I think he's going to use a service entrance.
Yeah?
Is this the only back exit of the hotel?
There's a loading ramp just around the corner.
Thanks.
Don't mention it.
Looks like an Abbott job.
What?
Abbott, a jet-set thief. He uses a strip of celluloid to pry back the spring locks on these hotel doors. He only robs celebrities.
But I was prepared for him. I hired this woman to keep watch, no? But you failed me. He made a fool of you. Thanks for reminding me.
Let's take this from the top. Miss West, exactly why were you hired?
Maybe you better ask her.
Well?
I read in the papers about a thief who robs celebrities. I think to myself, how interesting it would be to have him apprehended in my room.
A publicity stunt. And you went along with it.
Are you putting me on? I was playing it for real.
Even so, you should have checked more carefully. You're a licensed private investigator. I hope you realize that that license can be revoked at any time.
You're new on robbery detail, aren't you, Lieutenant Keith?
Yes, started a few weeks ago. Why?
I was just saying to Sam, the force needs new blood. Wasn't I, Sam?
Sure.
Especially men under 40.
Well,
You know, you and I ought to get together for dinner someday soon. I like to establish a personal relationship with the new men. It helps me to cooperate with the department.
Well, I think that's a good idea.
Fine. Will you be needing us for anything more?
Well, no, you've been very helpful. Thank you.
Helpful.
Shall we make it next Wednesday?
Wonderful. I'm in the book.
Good.
Come on, Sam.
Dinner is served. Caviar, trout, and a 1959 Chablis.
Lieutenant, you really are a swinger.
Over half a dozen cases piled up, and you want to go chasing after a jewel thief.
Not just a jewel thief, Sam. I've never met anyone like him before.
Oh, yeah.
Really, he's very charming, very sophisticated.
And deadly. He's a real blade man, trying hard to make the top 10. 5 robberies in the last 2 weeks, and all celebrities.
You make him sound like a party crasher.
Will you be serious, honey? Let's let the police do it. We work for money, remember? We haven't even got a client.
Yes, we have. Us. We have our reputation to uphold.
We haven't even got a lead.
Our friend dropped something last night. I neglected to mention it to the police.
What?
He said something about kissing the lady goodbye.
His wife?
No, he had a very unmarried look about him. I think he was talking about his next caper.
Go on, go on.
I did some checking. There's a very famous diamond worth nearly $250,000, and guess what it's called?
You tell me.
The Gray Lady.
Who owns it?
Play the game. Ex-chorus queen married a multi who naturally died of a heart attack, and now she's married to a younger, much younger knight in her shining money.
Babs Ivar.
Bingo.
And she lives in New York.
So?
So what are we going to do, commute?
We don't have to. According to the newspapers, they're arriving this...
Jerry, darling, where's the chauffeur?
He should be here. I sent word.
A carrier pigeon?
No, telegram. He should be here.
He should have been here. Jerry, darling, how many times have I told you? I don't like waiting in cold or empty airports.
I'm sorry, Babs, darling.
Lamb chop's got to get in the car. Her ears are all stuffed up. Look, now her nose is running.
There he is.
Get her into the car immediately. Traveling exhausts her completely.
Nice couple.
Of what?
Just one more, Miss Ivar.
Sam? Look what she's wearing.
Judge, I must have missed one.
Well, I wouldn't mind stealing that myself.
You might have to wait in line.
Well, the bait's here. Let's hope the fish are biting.
So there's we didn't really set it up very much, but this episode was written by a couple of I've just alluded to one of their shows a minute ago, Ellery Queen, written by Levinson and Link, who created in the running for the greatest television show of all time, Columbo.
Here is Link and Levinson, which is not how they're known.
Right.
And I didn't realize that they wrote for this show.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a couple years before they would have done Prescription Murder, the pilot, but it might have already
Starring
aired. Oh, Peter Falk.
and
Oh,
Gene Barry, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it was actually on another show. Somebody else played Columbo first. Now I can't remember who it is. And I feel like it was on an anthology show.
Mm-hmm.
But this was right before they broke out and made a name for themselves.
It was the guy from Stagecoach. It was that older actor.
Yeah, I can see him in my head, but I'm totally blinking. But Levinson and Link are very impressive, and I kind of feel like if you watch this, you can see the seeds of what Columbo would be in that. There's a twist at the end here, but they kind of reveal who the bad guy is right away, which a lot of shows don't do. Like in Burke's Law, the whole mystery was figuring out who did it, and here at least we know at least one of the people who's doing it, which is Cesare De Nova, an actor that shouldn't be that handsome and shouldn't be allowed to exist. But he would show up in Levinson and Link stuff throughout his career. The one I remember is he's in the pilot for a show called Black's Magic, which was a short-lived show that they created with a man named Peter Fisher. And I believe that the three of them also created Murder, She Wrote. And Black's Magic came a couple years after. And it's about a magician who solves crimes. And Cesare De Nova plays the great Gasparini. And that's an important name because he actually dies while being submerged underwater in one of his stunts. And so the gasp of last air. But he actually gets shot while he's inside a box, and they can't figure out how the gun ended up in a box while he was underwater. So yeah, Levinson and Link, I think this is an early glimmer of what was to come. And just briefly, we talked about Walter Grauman, but in the second act, there's going to be this really amazing fight scene, and I think the way they shot it was really amazing. And so Grauman and Levinson and Link did a great job together making this particular episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting, it's just sort of directorial touches, like the whole beginning where we see Burt Parks,
Oh,
we see
yeah.
that whole scene where everything's folding back, and then this whole thing in the airport, actually cutting to the plane landing before she finishes her line, and then the whole thing in the airport where we have Kevin McCarthy getting off the plane. He showed up in a lot of stuff too. Mary McCarthy's brother, actually, the writer Mary McCarthy. So these are people who would show up again and again in Aaron Spelling property, and in fact in everybody's properties. These it's kind of funny when you do the math. You figure they probably made the equivalent in today's money of about $30,000 per episode of television shows that they did. You kind of sort of do the math on how many shows or bit parts in movies you kind of have to do to make a living, and these were just kind of working stiff, sort of,
Yeah, they're so good. There's like, you use the word reliable actor, and it
Mhm.
almost sounds like an insult because it's like journeyman. Like, to me, a journeyman is the auteur, like they're the person that, like, you drop them anywhere and they can do it. And Kevin McCarthy is a great example of an actor you can drop into anything and he will be magnificent. You know what I mean? And so they become these quote unquote reliable actors, because yes, they're reliable, but they're also like really amazing and way more versatile than we sometimes give them credit for, I think.
Just saw Kevin McCarthy in Portrait of an Escort, which is not a very good TV movie.
I love that movie.
I
It's
like it too.
weird.
It's so strange, but he's just heartbreakingly good in that movie.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that movie
Yeah.
because it's like a drama about a woman who becomes an escort because she can't make ends meet. But then it's also like a stalker thriller
Yeah.
that shows up every 20 minutes. They remind you that there's a stalker.
But the whole stalker plot is just so tacked on.
Yeah, and it came out of the because there's Portrait of a Stripper, Portrait of a Portrait of a Stripper, Portrait of a Showgirl,
Yeah.
and Portrait of an Escort.
Yeah.
And it's one of I can't rank them. I love them all. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm done.
portrait exploitation. So let's wrap this episode up, and then because I am notorious for forgetting things, I want to thank Austin Public. We're here in the Austin Public studios. Doug Gray is here helping us run the show. We've got our whole team here, and everybody's been fantastic to us. But I got the idea to produce a show, as even as simple as this is, and I just want everybody in Austin to know that you can come over here and produce your own show. And we've got it simulcasting out to Twitch, simulcasting out to YouTube. It's also going out over Austin Public Channel 10 online. And also, if anybody still has cable in the year, what is this, 1998? Whatever year this is, if you still have cable, you can watch it on cable television. But you can come in, take classes, learn how to operate all this equipment, and be a producer here at Austin Public. And it's awesome that this is a thing that exists. So let's get into our last, I believe this is our last part of Honey West, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap the whole thing up.
Hi, Miss West.
Hello, Charlie.
So how's everything?
Fine.
That's great. Miss West.
Yes.
The yacht slide.
Oh, don't worry, Charlie. He's already eaten.
Miss West,
You're very punctual, Mr. Ivar.
I usually am when I hear my wife might be robbed. Do you mind telling me what this is all about?
I've reason to believe that a certain jewel thief is planning to steal your wife's diamond.
Oh, really?
In fact, I'm sure he is.
I see. And why, may I ask, are you telling me all this?
For your protection. Call it a favor.
And of course, you want a favor in return. Isn't that the way you kind of people usually work?
Something like that.
And what actually do you have in mind, Miss West?
Well, it's very simple. You put the diamond in the hotel safe, you hire me to guard the room, and when our friend arrives, I'll be waiting for him. What's so funny?
You, Miss West, delicious.
I beg your pardon?
I must say that yours is a rather original, if crass, way of getting clients.
Well, suit yourself, Mr. Ivar. It's your wife's $250,000.
How nice of you to remind me. And now, good day, Miss West. Thank you very much. We'll try to get along without your services.
Mr. Ivar, I have one thing to say to you.
You mean you actually said that to him?
He turned a very satisfying shade of magenta.
Well, I don't blame him. Got it out of your system now?
I don't come here for therapy. I come here for practice.
If you say so.
Now, look, Sam.
Okay. What are you doing for dinner tonight?
I have a previous engagement.
Does that mean what I think it means?
Could be.
Will you be realistic, honey? Ivor refused to hire you. How do you expect to set a trap without his help?
Because I have your help.
Oh, no. Not on your life. That's what we'll get if we're caught up here. Life.
Sing Sing swings this time of year.
Yes.
Television set, sir.
We already have one.
We already have one.
The hotel wants you to have a newer model. There's no charge.
So if it's free, we'll take it.
Yes, it's free. We'll take it.
Darling.
I hope you enjoy the new one.
Oh, just a minute.
Oh, just a minute.
Much obliged, ma'am. I mean, sir.
I'm terribly sorry. I don't watch television.
Very funny. One of these days we'll die laughing.
It's a great room, Sam. You couldn't have gotten me further away if you tried.
Can I help it if there's a convention in town? Let's hope we get a clear picture.
With what we paid for the equipment, we ought to.
Not that one, this one.
A new kind of set. It watches you.
Wonder what kind of rating the show is getting.
I better get back to the truck and keep the generator going.
I want to spend a quiet evening at home watching television.
Say, honey, if there's any trouble,
Loud and clear, Sam.
Beautiful.
I didn't know you cared.
This is where I came in.
Correction. This is where you go out.
I didn't think you'd expect me here tonight. Oh, that's the trouble with me. Overconfidence.
We all have our faults.
Curiosity seems to be one of yours. Could get you killed one of these days.
Better keep your sword dry, mister. This isn't a cigarette lighter.
What's going on here?
A funny thing happened to me on the way to my TV set.
Miss West, what are you doing here? Who is this man?
The jewel thief you didn't believe existed?
You mean
I mean, I'm on overtime. You're going to get quite a bill.
the gray lady?
Still your virginal property.
I don't know how to thank you.
You could start by calling the police. This is getting heavy.
Jackass! You dumb, stupid jackass. Everything we worked for, planned on. You let a girl blow it all.
She's like a bad penny.
What a setup. Your wife's diamond and you're a thief. The old insurance game, and I was dumb enough to fall for it.
But smart enough to catch Abbott. Most unfortunate, Miss West.
You were perfect. Big reputation, that's good casting. Someone steals the gray lady, and it's all part of the pattern. Your pattern, Mr. Abbott. And who would suspect you, Mama's little helper, helping himself to all that insurance money?
The insurance will take care of itself. You are the problem at the moment.
Look, I don't want to be in the way. Why don't I just say goodnight and grab a cab?
Did you make sure the desk clerk saw you?
Exactly as we said. How did you know I was in trouble?
I didn't. Just outside the hotel. There was a truck. Fellow in it had delivered a TV set in here earlier. It bothered me, and so I checked. He was watching a closed-circuit show. You were the star performer. Your friend will have quite a headache in the morning.
You're very thorough, Mr. Ivar.
Thank you, Miss West. Get rid of her.
What?
Don't you see it'll work for us? I'll say I hired her to guard the gray lady. You broke in, she tried to stop you, and whoosh, an 8-story drop.
You're right, Miss West. He is thorough.
More than you know. Well, I'm sure he told you the truth about the gray lady.
What about the gray lady?
Well, he's selling the real gray lady. You're going to have a great time down in Mexico, or wherever you're going, trying to peddle that fake.
Come on, Abbott. Divide and conquer. Miss West is playing the oldest game in the world.
Are you trying to tell me that diamond's phony?
You'll find out when you try to sell it.
I said get rid of her. Now.
Okay. Right after I examine that baby of ours.
The best laid plans of mice and men.
Yours too, Mr. Ivar.
Not really. The thief broke in. You fought gallantly to protect my wife's jewelry. The two of you struggled and shot each other.
The same gun? I'd hate to be your defense attorney.
No, Miss West. I also have your gun. Thoughtful. No? Oh! All right. Let's play your game, Miss West. We are going to have a ball.
glad to see you, too.
I beg you not to take this job now, didn't I?
Sam, watch it. You're going to break a stitch.
Which I wouldn't have if I hadn't listened to you.
I'm sorry, Sam. Really, I am. There. All better?
I think gangrene just set in.
Well, thanks a lot.
Well, now that you nearly got us both killed saving a phony jewel for a phony millionaire, who pays us?
Publicity? Columns of it. Our phone's been ringing like the bells of St. Mary's. We're booked solid.
Paying customers?
Money in the bank.
Mr. Bolts, I have to change your bandage now.
So long, Sam. I'll see you later.
Wait a minute. I want to hear about those jobs.
I have a luncheon appointment. Besides, you know how I hate the sight of blood.
All right, another 4-star production. Who was that show for?
That's a good, well, we can talk about demographics really quickly. TV, although Burke's Law, I think, is an example that sort of goes against what I'm going to say. TV has always been for women aged 18 to 49, and that's because women, especially in this era, tended to be housewives and were the largest consumer in the household. So people who made products wanted their commercials on shows that women would be watching. So you saw a lot of shows that took place within domestic spaces. You had like Donna Reed, Leave It to Beaver, you know, and which is interesting because Barbara Billingsley was actually top billed on that show. And I think that Honey West might be a good example of trying to merge demographics and get the women in that category to tune in, but also men would obviously tune in because it was an action show with this beautiful woman. But it was the first show of its kind, and I think you can watch it here and it would be, it's so easy to see where Charlie's Angels is starting to form, right? And that was definitely, you can talk about Jiggle TV all you want, but that was TV that was made for women as far as I'm concerned. That was a very influential show for me in particular, but for a lot of young girls who saw it. And so I don't know the exact marketing when they made the show or how they greenlit it, but I would imagine that there was some idea that they would get two different types of audiences if they created this show. Because I think women, especially at this stage when we're just getting into the beginning of second wave feminism, we're probably really interested in seeing this kind of like agency. And she kicks freaking ass in this, you know what I mean? This is a very strong woman. They didn't pussyfoot around with putting a woman in as a lead in this show for the first time and then having men save her left and right. That does not happen. So yeah, I think women were definitely at the forefront of the network's minds when they created the series.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating. And we're going to do, down the line, we're going to do Charlie's Angels, and we're going to, I hope, put the myth of like Jiggle television to bed, because that's not what that show really
no
was
pun
doing.
Intended.
Yeah, right. But that's not what that show really was, and I think people didn't get it. It really got a wrong rap. But it is fascinating to see this because we don't see Honey West is the subject of the show, and we see her. We see the show kind of through her purview, and we're not looking at her as leering outsiders. And after she kicks ass in that fight, she goes and she fixes herself up in the mirror. You know, it's about her. I think it's so fascinating. As you mentioned, that's a great fight scene, all the angles from above. And keep in mind, I will say this, keep in mind, when we would do History of Television here before it became the multinational television show that it is now, we would watch things on a screen here. It's a pretty big screen. And you can see things on that big screen that you were never meant to see, because televisions, by and large, were, well, you see an old television in this episode, were small things. You would not have been able to tell that that was a stunt man. Rumors are that it was Bruce Lee, actually, in a blonde wig doing those stunts. Actually, I just made that up, but carry it on. This is how rumors happen. But yeah, you would not have been able to tell that. It's a really well done fight scene, I think.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think this episode is a really good introduction for people if they haven't seen it yet, because it has a little bit of everything in it. It's got the glamour that Aaron Spelling really liked. It's got this really strong female lead, and it's the beginning of him starting to really start to push these really dynamic actresses into bigger roles. And it's a really great sort of look at how the 30-minute action shows used to look back in the day, because they just don't do those anymore.
Yeah. And it's also, you see, Marianne Mobley, who played in the Backdoor Pilot, played Honey West, probably is wonderful and is gorgeous and a terrific personality and everything. And I really like her a lot, but I don't think she quite had the personality that Anne Francis brings. Your television star has to have a big personality. It's just kind of part of the deal. And I don't think Marianne Mobley at this point in her career had that personality that she could have brought to it in the way Anne Francis does.
She hadn't done enough dinner theater yet with Gary Collins.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was to come.
Yeah, but Anne Francis really has that big personality, and it's really, I think the show really works. It's probably it just probably landed at kind of the wrong time to be a hit, and it's also, you look at it, it's kind of a little bit of an expensive show for a 30-minute show.
Well, just that fight scene alone.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't even imagine how they put that together.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's all we got for this time. We're going to be back next month again. We're going to show The House
That Wouldn't Die.
That Wouldn't Die, with Barbara Stanwyck and who's the guy who plays her love interest?
I can't even remember his name now.
Guy's name? He's kind of a stiff, but
I can see him in my head.
Yeah.
But Kitty Wynn's in it as well.
Kitty Wynn from Panic at Needle Park,
and it's based on a Barbara Michaels novel, my favorite horror novel, and it's a really great adaptation. And I can't wait to talk about it, because there's an awful lot to talk about with that TV movie.
And then we're gonna actually figure out what we're doing in March and April, but we're gonna head on into the rest of Aaron Spelling's career as we sort of move forward. Again, want to thank Doug Gray here at Austin Public. Thank you for doing this. And I think at this point it's 9:03, so we're 3 minutes over. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you at the television
station. Tune in tomorrow.
Please make us go away. Thank you.